Thank you, Lisa. I told Lisa earlier that I had put an extra dose of Old Spice on this morning for the show.
Ah, yes.
So you can tell we're going to have a very interesting, engaging panel. And so I'd like to introduce the rest of our panelists. With us, Peter Honebein, who's the founder of Customer Performance Group. Next to him, we have Judith Schwartz, who is the president of To The Point. And to her right is Jon Lanning, senior manager, home management platform of Best Buy. Thank you for being here. The same format, Lisa's already done her 15-minute show. And so we're going to start with 5 minutes each, and then we'll go to Q&A. Peter, you first?
Sure, I'll start off first. So what I wanted to share with you in my 5 minutes is 5 key principles for how utilities can move toward this idea of customer engagement. I think in the last presentation, customer engagement is customers actually taking some type of action, and we want to be able to measure the action that they take. So principle number one is that we want to see customers as being co-creators of value. So what does co-creators of value mean? What it means is that think of Subway sandwich shop. Okay, so many of you have been to a Subway sandwich shop and you have the sandwich maker, and your role as customer is sandwich director, correct? And so as you go through that process of making a sandwich, the maker is executing your instructions to create a sandwich just the way that you like it. And at the end, what do? They show you the sandwich, and you say, and they go, is it the right sandwich? And you say, yes. They close it, wrap it up. You pay for it. How can you now complain? Because you've had this role in co-creating value in the creation of the sandwich. The second principle that I think is very important to utilities as they begin to look for customer engagement is this idea of identifying a competitor. Okay, I think you've seen that in the Procter & Gamble presentation, is that there's a lot of competitors for their various types of products. And when we started working in the utility space 5 years ago, I remember the whiteboard that we had at one of our clients. And there are 2 things that we put on that whiteboard. One, and this is dealing with smart meter strategy, smart meter rollout strategy. One was, what's the product? And second was, who's the competitor? And when back in 5 years ago, there really wasn't any competitors. You know, you looked around and say, is anybody else offering similar types of services and things? So sometimes you have to kind of say, okay, well, what are we actually competing against? And invent a competitor. And so we invented the competitor of people's time. They'd much rather spend their time doing other things. As the industry has evolved, a lot more types of competitors have been coming in. One competitor is sitting right to my right, 2 seats over. If I'm from a utility standpoint, Best Buy potentially is a competitor, mainly because they're trying to take my clients, my utilities business of doing energy audits online rather than us doing energy audits online. So identifying a competitor is a really key thing, because part of competition is that you want to identify somebody whose butt you want to kick, okay? And that really becomes the element of what drives competition, and that drives innovation. The third principle is this idea of benefits. And what I'd like to say to the utility industry is stop being so rational. What I mean by rational is that when the gentleman presented the whole green button thing, he ended with, oh, this is great because customers are going to be able to make better decisions. Okay, decisions. That means I'm using the top part of my brain, I'm processing numbers, I'm trying to self-maximize my benefit and stuff like that. But it's not all about the rational processing that we do. Okay? As you saw in some of the Procter & Gamble advertisements, there's also an emotional side to benefits, right? Because we think about head, hands, and heart when it comes to tying benefits together. So when we look at what behavioral economics has taught us and other things in that particular area, it's what's the emotional benefit of smart metering systems? What's the emotional benefit tied to green button? And that is potentially the reduction of surprise and worry. When we've looked at utility call center records and listened to calls, people are calling utility 50% of the time because either they're surprised by their bill or they're worried that they can't pay the bill. And potentially through green button, it's those types of emotional connections that is the true benefit that we're offering our customers. And if you go look at the Carl and Eddie commercials, I'll do a little shout out to Southern California Edison. They have a very nice advertising program for that. and you'll see Carl and Eddie talking about less bad surprises for customers. Number 4 is culture. For those of you who work in utilities, you're going to get this one right away. And in a utility culture, there's the concept of what's called skeet shooting. Okay? So you introduce a new innovation, a new idea or something like that, and the first thing that happens, the shotguns get whipped out, and it's like shooting down that idea. Okay? I mean, that's just the culture, right? It's engineers, no offense, okay? But they're trained to, look at the risks and to shoot down those types of ideas. And so from a cultural standpoint, you have to move the culture away from this idea of skeet shooting more toward what happens at a baseball game or a basketball game where people bring out beach balls. And what do you do when a beach ball is brought out at a baseball game? What's the goal? Keep it up in the air, right? It's yes and versus yes but. So from a cultural standpoint, you want to focus on beginning to change that culture to think about yes and rather than yes but. The 5th element, or the 5th principle, is an idea that I've been playing with for quite some time, and I think green buttons are a really good example of it. And what I call this idea, or this principle, is this idea of planting grass. Utilities are very good at building paths. So imagine you're on the mall here in Washington, D.C., and there's broad parts of grass around, right? Well, the utility has created all the concrete paths out there. But when we go out to the mall, we see trails in the grass, right? They're called desire lines. And why do we see those? Because the paths that were built are not creating value for the customer. The paths mean I have to go down this way and then go that way, and it's much easier if I just cut off that line there and go directly over there. And so this idea of planting grass, meaning from an innovation standpoint, if I have an innovation like Green Button or any other type of innovation, that I consider that I'll put in a concrete path, but I'm also going to plant lots of grass around it, and I'm going to look to where the desire lines come up to see how people are using the innovations and potentially spot other types of innovations. I do have one bonus that I'll provide you in my list of principles that as I was listening to Lisa talk about, Lisa or Jill? Lisa, got it right, okay, don't know. Is this idea of metrics and sales metrics. One of the things that we see in utilities with our clients is the hesitancy to have accountability for certain things. Decisions are made by consensus often, but there isn't this tight idea of metrics. And when you look at Lisa's slides at the very end, where every time she shows you a campaign, it's like, and this is what the results are. Very rational, very specific, right? And that's the other aspect, is that there has to be the setting of goals, there has to be the setting of targets and accountability for that.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Judith, or John?
I think John was going to
Sure,
go.
John's got a cold, so you want to go next?
Put me on the end, yeah. Thanks and good afternoon. It's indeed a pleasure to be here, and our thanks to the Edison Foundation for our inclusion in this panel as well. I lead business development for Best Buy of our home energy management platform. And although that platform and my role have multiple and wide-ranging areas of pilots and programs, the majority of our work recently has been centered on a proof of concept of what we call our home energy department. It's a kiosk or a store within a store type concept that we recently opened in 3 locations in November, and I'd like to share some of those results with you here today. The locations are in the Chicago, Houston, and San Francisco areas, and are really the manifestation of how we translated an original idea, plus consumer suggestions and insight and research into a physical location in the store. And although we open the departments with only a percentage of the products and the services that will ultimately carry in them, and we continue to version the design and the look and the feel currently for future deployment, our initial research informed us that there was consumer demand for an area in the store that number one, had dedicated personnel that could disseminate information among many different dimensions. An example of that is helping them with manage their energy consumption or explaining local programs and incentives that were currently being offered, as well as promoting this ethic of conservation. And then secondly, that demand for an area in the store had products and services that dealt specifically with automated controls, security and protection, remote management, convenience and comfort, and interestingly enough, at least for us, rate plans. What we also learned was the average consumer really has no understanding of energy to begin with, and now we're adding layers of complexity to it. So with that in mind, and I guess implicit in that customer demand for these products and services was the premise that the personnel in these departments could demystify that new technology, if you will, as well as educating that investing in that technology does have a payoff. So our initial results are very favorable, and we're extremely pleased. I actually was going to say our results were quite startling, but after Dan's keynote, I changed it to very favorable and extremely pleased with them. So we just completed another round of learnings by what we call our Customer Insights Group. And I'd share just a couple of the many findings that we had. Number one, the customer segments we identified of Home Safeguarder and Life Maximizer were validated that we're shopping these departments. Also, the department, and they're somewhere between 900 and 1,100 square feet, depending on the location, stopped people in their tracks and brought them into that department. And while there, they spent an average of 25 minutes interacting with the displays or the personnel, and had what we call multiple aha moments in there. We also learned there's great leverage for our brand for some of the services that we're offering in this department as well. And what resonated with them are the products and services kind of had a technology feel. And for those consumers, it felt like that belonged at Best Buy and not necessarily at a home improvement or a membership store. So to conclude, we feel that it was a great first attempt, and we'll continue to iterate for the next wave of deployment of these. We feel the floodgates are about to open on the potential products and devices and services that this department can offer. We also feel that we can significantly increase the adoption of these devices via the department's physical location and our online presence. And also that utility participation and partnership are a key to the success of the department as well. And we feel that we can be a customer acquisition engine for DR or EE programs while delivering a very high level of customer satisfaction as well.
Thank you, John. Mm-hmm. Judith?
So first of all, I want to thank Mr. Pink for introducing me. I couldn't give him his payoff on the way in, but you know, because I didn't know he was going to call on me. But I think that what I really liked about what he had to say was this idea of people being excited about what they do has a lot to do with it. And for those of you who don't know me, I do a lot of work in terms of working with cross-stakeholder collaboration. I'm always trying to get people to break down barriers and to break down the silos. And I work with groups like the Smart Grid Consumer Collaborative and an ADS to try and get people to sort of look at what's the research saying and what is it saying about the people that use electricity. And I want to take issue with something you said, which was that customers don't have understanding. And I think they do have understanding because everybody uses electricity. And what I have found as sort of a balance to the research that I've been involved with, where I've gotten to see, you know, pretty much most of the studies that are out there, some proprietary, some that are just sort of out in the general public, that you see certain patterns. And these patterns show up over and over and over again. And you get names like Life Maximizer, whatever, that are market research terms that groups develop. But what basically really happens is that you see the same trends. And these trends are important because, and I've started to call them, I've evolved to calling them energy worldviews rather than just motivational segments, because they're so pronounced that people tend to see the world. So, you know, this idea of is everybody, you know, wanting to have a competition? No, some people want to cooperate, and that feels better to them. And I think that what we see is that there are people who really want to save the planet. that matters to them. They are going to do what Daniel, they are going to fight hard. That's why they're going to do it. And they don't really care. If they save $60 on their electric bill, who cares? It's not enough money. It doesn't mean anything. For someone else who's very cost conscious, okay, they want to pinch those pennies. They want to find that $63 and do something else with it. And those things are not related. They're not tied to how much money you have. So, Pete, one of the great videos that you have on your site that we also put on the EEI website, Smart Grid website, is a woman named Virginia. And when they filmed Virginia, she's obviously affluent, she sounds like she's educated, and she talks about how she saves money with the pilot program and how great it was because she used the money she saved to go visit her daughter who lived in Canada. She applied that towards the plane ticket. We did an interview with a young man from Worcester who came to the community summit that we had in Worcester that National Grid put on. And this kid, Sammy, who was there because he was recruited to come as a low-income resident of the community, this was like this mind-blowing experience that he got to be part of it. And so we did an interview with him later after the fact, and he starts telling the story that, because now he's aware, he pays his own electric bill, so he now is aware that he saved this money, and he's going to use this money to go buy a video game. Okay? Now, it's the exact same value proposition. Their income levels don't have anything to do. She's a 62-year-old woman, and he's an 18-year-old kid. But the motivation was the same. And that's what's so cool about these energy worldviews. Now, the other thing that's cool about it is that they're everywhere. So you can talk to everybody you know. And one of the things that I've found is kind of interesting is that I've used it as a technique I do research all the time, and I'll be in some situation where I don't necessarily know people, or I maybe have like little different political worldview than they do, or something like that, and I want some common ground. And I start talking about what I'm working on, and they always have opinions. And what I've noticed is that the best exchange is not a single message. It's not something you can do, that if you align the worldview with what people care about, then all of a sudden you have a way to reach them. Now, if you're a utility and you're used to doing brand marketing, well, you kind of can't do it this way. So how do you scale these things? So I come from the world of Silicon Valley and high tech, and I just want to say one more thing to what Daniel was talking about. When I came to work at Apple, Steve never talked about the money we were going to make. That had nothing to do with it. It was we were going to change the world. And you would get chills, and that was why you did it, and that was why you spent all this time working there. And I think it fits here, because when people care about this stuff, they will go be energy ambassadors. So one of the things we're working on with the PowerSense DC team is we're working on an energy literacy workshop where we are going to reach out to all of the community-based organizations that have a sort of relevant mission to come and be part of this thing, so that the union, PEPCO, the Consumer Utility Board, the Office of the People's Counsel, and the DC Commission can share what they've learned, and we can get more people excited so that it isn't just the utility having to do it. You have other groups in the community who are then expanding out. And so we're now all very enamored of Twitter and Facebook. And so what I'd like to say to you is that this is like human Twitter. And the advantage of having face-to-face interaction is that when I see that I've made some comment about resistors being people in the Tea Party, and the person goes like this, and I obviously realize that they're a Tea Party person, I can change what I talk about. And I talk about it a different way. And all of a sudden then they're back on board because they're a penny pincher, and now they're really excited, and they're telling me about all the things they're doing. So I think that this idea, and I think that's why the Best Buy thing is so good, because there's a human being having a conversation, and that is a huge thing, and then it takes the person from wherever their knowledge is to where they need to go.
Thank you, Judith. I want to remind the audience to tweet and text your questions, because we have such a great panel. Please forward those on. I have some prepared questions. We'll work those in. There's some disagreement here, which is great. I think we all agree, and it's sort of what my byline last year, it's not about the technology, it's about engagement. and that's what we got to keep focus on. As utilities, a lot of that engagement historically is when, as was said, there's a problem. The power's out. I don't understand my bill. It's too high. And there's a lot of expertise here working, engaging customers outside the electricity sector. Some of you are working with the electricity sector, so we have a lot to learn here. And my first question is for Peter. We have Procter & Gamble and Best Buy, and for years they've been engaging customers. They have the processes, they have the culture, and I think culture is probably one of the most important things. And you know, you seem to be familiar with utility culture to some extent, although I may not agree with all of those observations. But so what do we have to do? What do we have to change? And what has to happen internally, the utility, for us to be able to engage our customers?
So what has to happen internally kind of follows those 6 principles that I had led off with. So we'll go in just a little bit deeper into some of those principles. When you look at things like process, okay, and when I think of process, I think of customer experience design. And customer experiences either are by design or by default. And when you look at utility customer experiences, they tend to favor IT, who often owns a particular process. The technology approaches that are used are not agile. They follow traditional methods of IT development to where a project has a certain start or stop. One utility, Avista, who has been recognized as having one of the best websites around, when I talk to them about what's the secret sauce that needs to be built in to be able to create things that are really strong websites or other things that engage customers, for them, it boils down to 2 things. One is that their teams collaborate, which is a very good principle. But second is that there has to be this balance between agile technology development processes with the traditional waterfall model, because somebody like Pete over here, he's going to want to know that a project starts and it ends and that it has a specific budget. But we know that if we develop technology to create customer experiences along that way, the project's not done when we implement. After we implement, there has to be this period of experimentation that you allow for, let's say, A/B testing of certain types of interfaces and those types of things. So you're bringing in those human factors type of methods into something as simple as an IT development process. And so one of the ways that you can look at changing the culture is by looking at the processes, looking at the technology methods that are used, and beginning to educate the people in the utility to think about different ways of where they can, again, plant more grass around the things that they build.
I was hoping you were going to talk about taking the shells out of the shotguns at the skeet range, but we'll get to that at some point in time, because I have seen that happen. Jon, would you talk about why Best Buy feels the need to provide a complete solution as an approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one element of providing that whole solution or complete solution certainly is customer satisfaction. We feel that a proliferation of connected devices doesn't equal a proliferation of connected experiences, and offering that whole solution certainly will increase that connected experience, but also can serve as a differentiating factor. For example, you can buy a TV online and have it shipped to you, but an in-store experience that offers that television plus the delivery or the setup or the installation, the haul away of the old one or the recycling of the old one, plus any after-sale service or support or warranties, accessories and content certainly complete the sale, but offer a better experience and certainly can be that differentiated experience. Another area certainly is the commoditization of the majority of the products that we sell, and having and offering that total solution certainly helps mitigate some of the margin compression that you get through that commoditization. So another area, we have something that we call walk-out working, and some device, whatever that may be, is up, running, and functional when it leaves the store. And probably the best example of that is a mobile phone or a mobile device, but it also has applications to some of the conversations we're having with our utility partners in discussions of pilot programs. And for an example, it could be a retail hand solution that has a connected device that can be paired or registered or activated and ready for plug and play when the customer takes it home. So, an example.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Judith, a question, you talked about importance of reaching a range of customers and different channels, and Could you talk about why is that important, how does that work, and a little bit about PowerSense?
Okay, so I kind of want to sort of handle two parts of it, because one of it is that technology that you are all starting to invest in is going to enable a digital relationship that you can know about someone. Peter has a lot of experience dealing with customer relationship management systems and some of the pilots that he worked on. And this idea that digital technology allows you to do what in high tech we call one-to-one marketing. I mean, so you can really give somebody a personal flavor of the information that you share with them. And so you don't have to give messages to someone. So if you know that you're talking to an environmental group, green messages they're going to be very receptive to that. And if you're talking to the local gun club, you probably don't want to use the green messages, okay? And so one of the things that we're doing with, that I think we have an opportunity to do is to complement the personal things, and I'm going to talk about PowerSense in that context, with the technical side to be able to reach people in this very targeted way. And so that you can know that if someone is in the market for a particular kind of thing because of the way they're reacting, you can show them an ad or something for Best Buy to say, hey, this is a place you can go and here's $10 off to go buy a home energy management system, because the answers that someone has given you have let you know that they would care about that. Now, I think what we're trying to do with PowerSense is that what PowerSense did that I think was really amazing was that by having these different groups involved, you had different stakeholders involved who had completely different interests. And because they worked together, they made this thing happen that nobody had expected. And there had been all this talk about, was it good for low-income people or not good for low-income people? And because the consumer advocates were part of the game, when they said, hey, this works for low-income people, they're a lot more credible saying it than if Joe Rigby says it. Okay, and so who says it, who delivers the message is really key. And I think that was one of the lessons that came out of it. The other thing was that we got a chance to see what does it take to explain these things to people. And again, they had the experience that by using these personal interactions and filtering out that all of a sudden you had this effect that happens. And so that's one of the things that I think comes out of PowerSense is that the collaboration and breaking down those silos makes a difference in terms of results and reactions.
Thank you. We have one question for Lisa. Is, did NASCAR use cold water for a better clean?
I'm so glad you saved the tough questions for me. Absolutely. What a demonstration. We couldn't have planned that one better. It works in clean water. We have legal working on jet fuel claims. If you happen to get jet fuel on your clothes, we can get it off.
Well, we'll keep with you, Lisa, for a moment.
Okay.
Because you are a marketing pro, and Procter & Gamble, as we all know, has been involved in this for more than 100 years, I would think. But what advice do you have for utilities? You heard a little bit about when we engage with customers historically.
Yep.
What
Yep.
are the top 2 or 3 things you think we need to do to rebrand or to
Yeah.
get our ship in
Yeah.
the right direction?
You know, I think I have one, and that is engaging means touching people's lives, and it means getting out and talking to people. So we don't sit behind a glass mirror in a focus group and watch people. Everybody from our CEO, Bob McDonald, on down, goes out to people's homes and talks to people and watches them, engages with them. And it's only by doing that that you understand 2 things. You understand their needs and you understand our benefits. For example, there's a ton of technology in a diaper. And you all are familiar with the basic functional need of a diaper. And in order to do that, we have barrier leg cuffs, and we have a dry top sheet, and we've got the cloth-like back, etc. It took us years of work and thousands of homes to figure out how to talk about and how to understand what that benefit is for a mom. It turns out our diapers work so well that a baby can sleep through the night, a full 12 hours with our diaper without getting sick, waking up, having to be changed. And guess what? When they sleep through the night, they develop better in the morning. So our Golden Sleep program has literally gone around the world as a simple demonstration of the importance of a diaper to baby development. But that wouldn't come without lots and lots of contact with people.
But don't you think you should like market that to mothers to say this will get you to sleep through the night?
You know, it's interesting, the benefit to mom and the benefits to babies. When we first launched Pampers, we marketed it as this is a convenience to mom. And guess what? It bombed.
It went that
It
other
bombed
way.
because mom first, she'll figure that part out. But the first thing she wants to know is it's good for her baby.
There's another question from the audience, which is the assumption that this is going to be an important part of engagement. How do we make engagement with the electric power sector fun and easy?
Well, so we had it one
Are they
conference-
compatible?
We were talking about could we make it sexy, and could we, you know, I think that here's the thing. What I see, I don't know in terms of, there are places where games make sense, okay? And as Peter was talking about, you know, some people really like to compete, okay? And other people don't want to compete. But for the people who want to compete, the fact that all the things that are happening online, that things like Simple Energy are trying to do, and the Badgeville, and so you have these different kinds of things where people can have an opportunity to exercise their competition. But you also have the opportunity to do things where people can cooperate. So one of the things that's more what the tendril grounded power approach is when you're looking at it, you know, what do you do as a community, and how do you, and what's the ideal, and what can you get to? So I think that what makes something fun is if it's interesting to you. So if somebody is really engaged and they put this solar hot water heater on their house so they can make a difference on their bill, and they want to watch all the things they do, or they want to get a device so that they, then it becomes exciting and it's fun for them. So it's that hitting that place where they live that makes it fun, easy, exciting. And then for other people who don't want to be bothered, if there's no automation, okay, if it's automated, okay, put it in their house, use either the utility person or your people to put it in, it's automated, and then leave them alone. Don't send them messages in their email about, oh, you can do this to save energy. They don't want to do that. They don't want to hear from you.
Now, the easy component, I mean, fun, I think we're stretching a little bit. A lot of the work I do, I'm not focused on fun, and I'm not focused on delight. I'm just focused on trying to get the right job done right for customers. So when we look at easy is you know, something that we've been working quite a bit with you know, across the board. And I think the key thing about easy is understanding what the customer's problem is, and then solving that particular customer through the bundling of different types of services. So for example, customers call in with a payment arrangement, okay? Payment arrangement, somebody's having difficulty paying their bill, they want credit terms. And while we solve their problem in an easier way by finding what the right credit terms are, or better yet, doing a tell, don't sell, oftentimes utilities have a number of different, one client of ours has 9 different plans, right? Ask a couple questions, lead the customer to the plan, or recommend the plan that's best for them. But the other component of that is using that opportunity to integrate services. So for example, while I'm doing a payment arrangement, since I know this customer has an issue with being worried about paying their bill, I also try to tack on this idea of bill alerts to where I can send to them via voice, text, email, whatever their preference is, alerts, and get them involved in that type of information so that we first take care of the problem, right? Because that's part of the idea of easy to do business with. Customers want their problem solved. And if I can solve that by integrating some of the new technologies that smart metering systems provide, then I hit that easy thing. The fun stuff, that comes potentially later. Okay? I mean, my wife and I have a 5 kW solar PV system. It was fun for the first year, okay? The fun has left the building. Okay? I mean, it sits out in the backyard, it generates electricity. You know, we used to come home and go, oh, how much did we make today? But you know, now it's just a hunk of metal and glass out in the backyard that in the summertime keeps our bill at 0.
You know, I had a ton of fun preparing for this speech. Duke came and did a home energy audit, and the guy came with a heat gun, and he showed me all the places where heat was escaping from the home. And then we turned on the boiler, and I actually watched the meter go over. And then he showed me how to get onto the website, And I found out that I changed to a heat pump earlier before this presentation, and he showed me how my energy consumption went down. And I was so engaged. I had no idea anything about electricity, and I left that really pumped. It's now costing me a fortune because I'm going to put new insulation in. I've turned I've turned the water heater down. I've got all these things. It's now costing me thousands of dollars, but I had fun with it.
But see, Lisa's showing, I think, the point that if you have some reason to engage, then it's interesting. And, you know, I've worked over the years on a lot of very complex technical things that no one would care about, okay? And this people care about. It matters. Everybody turns on the switch. And that's one of the beauties of it is that, and not only that, but we have a good story, guys. We're offering, the things that we're offering with this new technology and these new programs are good things. They're good for the planet, they're good for human beings, they're good for families. So that makes it a lot easier when you're selling something that really is of value.
Yeah, but you're talking like engagement is this thing I'm doing 24/7.
No, it's not 24/7.
Because I mean, in my house, I got time of use rate. My engagement is pretty much when I turn on the dishwasher, whether or not I turn it on immediately because it's after 9 o'clock, or if I set the timer for it. Everything else is automated. I've got CFLs in over 90% of the lights in my house. And when we look at, it was brought up earlier, this idea of customer relationships. We've done some research in that area because CEOs always ask, you know, we need to change the customer relationship. Well, from what to what? Right now, your customer relationship is marriage of convenience, okay? Where customers want to begin to move is either staying at marriage of convenience or bringing in some additional trust and voluntary type concepts into that relationship, which indicates friendship or potentially partnership. But the idea behind, you know, the engagement, I mean, we're on automated bill pay.
Okay. But so
We're still saving money.
And
okay?
your tech, and so the technology of it is what makes it fun for you to get it all set up and that it all works?
Nothing in fun. It's just what we do in our life. It's you turn it down and we
Okay,
save
so-
$250 a year.
So Peter's a Puritan and doesn't get to have fun. But you know, but I think he raises a really interesting thing that he put about culture. Okay, the culture of a utility, okay, and how they treat their employees and how they treat their customers. That if there is, and I talk to lots of utilities where there is a culture of caring about the customers, and when that happens and caring about it emanates through. It's because you know being in high tech for a long time, I got to tell you, the people who work in utilities are by and large much nicer, and they're nice. You know, they you don't go into this business because you're some weird person who can't look people in the eye and do all this stuff. You like people. If you're out there in the field, you want to talk to people. And I think that the employees are like the best secret weapon of, you know, they're out there with everybody. And I think that
Except legal.
What's that?
Except legal and regulatory people.
Oh.
One debate earlier was about education of customers. And we have Peter's fairly well educated, I think, very educated. So he automates it and he's fine. He knows what's going on. He's happy because he knows what's going on. And John made a comment, and our observation is they don't really understand a lot about how electricity is made and the different times of day. It costs a lot more for the utility and they can save money. And Lisa learned a lot on her audit.
Absolutely.
And we do those as well. But that's hand to hand, one person at a time. That's a very intensive effort to underlie all this. Do you have any suggestions on how to, because the energy audits, you have to get them to, you know, we offer $200 audit for $50 to incent. And
I got mine for free.
And we,
Duke Energy.
Well, we had a little trouble. We went to zero, and then we had so much demand we
I
couldn't
know.
meet up our, so we had to
Well,
go
but I
back to
think it's a
$50.
combination.
I felt
So
guilty about it.
So if you think of it as you have layers of what you do. So let's say you have your general media, that's your brand advertising, that is brand awareness, so people know who OG is, okay? And then you have other things that are delivered, so people will tell you, do they want to get stuff in the mail as bill stuffers, or would they rather get stuff via email? Is that a better way? So they'll tell you the vehicles that how they want to be. Do they just want tweets? Do they just want, you know? And so what you do is you don't try to inundate everybody with every piece of information. You let people have, and so I'm real big on the idea of setting something up on a website where people can come and self-select, and they can pick the program and the path that resonates for them, and then they go down a path. And if they've picked the green path, then you can give them all these messages and videos and things that fit, okay? They've self-selected, you're not having to have, and then you point them to a place that they can get involved with something where they can have an interaction. If somebody is an indifferent and they don't want to do it, and they just want to come and pay their bill and that's it, okay? Don't give them all sorts of extra stuff. They get annoyed. I have this lady that I've befriended who wrote me a nasty letter about something I wrote.
She gets a lot of those.
Right. And so I've been interviewing her and sort of finding out. This woman who doesn't want smart grid because she doesn't like the idea of collective investment is annoyed and insulted if you sent her an energy saving tip. She says, well, this is common sense. Why are they telling me? Okay, save your money. Don't send those people energy saving tips each month because it's just going to make them angry.
I was going to say the same thing. With diapers, we often have issues when we change the diaper, and we actually have flown mother bloggers into P&G headquarters to our labs to understand how diapers are made, what we do, the science, what we know about skin. In that case, these people are very high leverage. It makes a ton of sense to get mom bloggers to really understand what we're all about. Other people, it's not worth the investment. As I did my energy audit, I thought about the same thing because I'm thinking how expensive this is. You know, the messages were pretty simple, and I thought there's a lot of this you could actually do in a more automated way. For example, almost all the energy audits in my area, old houses, insulation, turn the water heater down, make sure the windows are double insulated, turn down your thermostat when you leave the house, get an automated thermostat. They were pretty simple common sense. And so if the industry gets those messages out there, there'll be less need for the in-depth kind of stuff.
Well, do the regulators allow you to recover that cost of that plane trip when you fly the mother bloggers in?
So I told you, legal and regulatory.
We get it back. You talk about measuring things. We get it back in sales because people then write about it. They talk about it. When people understand the technology behind our brands, it's cool. There are lots of people who are really interested in that, but a select group, and so we actually do get it back in business in
And when you go to something, you want to go to some place where there's critical mass already. So one of the things that happens is agencies want to give their utility customers a laundry list of all the different things that they can possibly do. Well, I'm sorry, who is going to go, really, lots of people to the utility Facebook page? I mean, come on. So you want to find a Facebook group that already exists that has 20,000 members.
Old Spice.
Right? You want to go to people where they already have something.
We got a lot of people.
Right, and let them talk about it, because that's the thing. And so it means that there's a little less command and control, okay, which I realize is a little nerve-wracking, but I think that this is part of it, that allow the messages to evolve through, and it will be okay.
You're right, I'm nervous because I lost control of this whole panel. But I think we're just going to keep going and really make Lisa run out here and turn off the lights. But just to throw up, we're trying to engage 50,000 customers to get programmable thermostats in our homes at OG&E this year. Do you have any advice? Short
advice?
Short advice.
I got a
Powerful
couple
but
ideas
short.
for you, Pete, on engagement.
Go for it.
I think there's a Best Buy in Oklahoma City we can probably help you with.
The Old
Should have seen that one coming.
The Old Spice guy,
This old-
if he's available. Manly thermostats.
It's two good suggestions.
Well,
Okay.
let them pick the program that they want, rather than imposing a rate on them. Let them pick the program that has the rate that fits their lifestyle, whether they want to pay attention every day or just 10 times a year.
Even if we know what's best for them, right?
So let them pick.
All right.
I'm going to be a bit more pragmatic about this one, okay? If you want to know a company's strategy, you look at their sales incentive plan. So for example, with Best Buy, they call themselves no commission, right? But just like how the smart meters have their detractors out there with conspiracy theories, there's a conspiracy theory about Best Buy because even though they say no commission, they have the number of hours that people get to work based on how much they upsell all of you. Is that right? Or is that a
That's
conspiracy
simply not
theory?
true, yeah.
Simply not true. Okay? Just like privacy,
heard it
smart
here.
meters
You've
will-
heard it
We
here.
are a
Okay.
completely non-commissioned workforce,
So-
so big conspiracy. there.
Just down the road in Virginia, there's a small co-op. And that co-op has sold customers on getting outage notifications. And the way that they've done that, they've got 20,000 people who have signed up to get an email, a text if their power goes out. 20,000 people paying $3 a month. You know how they got that many people? They're getting 400 new customers paying $3 a month to do this. They incented their customer service representatives. Everybody who they signed up for that little outage notification thing, which doesn't cost them a cent, gets $12. Incent your CSRs.
There we go. Thank you. This has been a great panel. Let's give a round of applause for this great panel. Thank you very much. We're out of time.